Hello, and welcome to the World Teleport Association webinar, Higher Quality from Your Teleport Operations Team. My name is Robert Bell. I'm the Executive Director of the World Teleport Association. In case you're not familiar with us, WTA exists to advocate for the commercial interests of teleport operators through programs like the Satellite Operator Benchmarks Research, which asks teleport operators to rate the commercial and operational practices of the satellite operators that they do business with. It gives our industry a united voice when it comes to the very challenging issues of vertical integration and fair competition within the supply chain. We also promote excellence in operations, in technology, and business practices among teleport operators to maintain the competitiveness of the sector and to ensure that customers receive the best value for money. And a couple of the examples you see here, teleport opportunities and sizing the teleport market, are examples of that. We represent more than 140 teleport operators, satellite operators, and technology providers in some 46 nations. And our industry is a vital market channel for satellite and fiber services, responsible for an estimated 27% of satellite transmission spending worldwide. It's also a major market for technology, spending 5 times more than the broadcast industry, according to our research. And this is a representative list of our members, which includes the biggest as well as some of the smallest teleport operators in the market, global and regional satellite operators, and the most renowned names in technology. Our agenda for this hour includes this introduction, a briefing on teleport certification as it applies to the human factors of processes and procedures. And I'll then introduce our panelists, and we will explore the key issues in quality assurance for teleports. So what is certification? WTA offers the only certification program for teleports, whether they serve media and entertainment, maritime, government, military, or any other market. And certification covers facilities of a teleport, as well as its technical infrastructure and its operating procedures. It offers a transparent and standards-based way to method for quality assurance, a way for every teleport operator to verify the quality of its operations and for customers to select the price-performance balance that meets their need, from mission-critical 5.9 service level to more fault-tolerant applications that are usually price-sensitive. Teleport operators start by requesting provisional certification based on self-reporting of some 170 data points, covering everything from business continuity and transmission systems to how they manage capacity, security, configurations, and so forth. Provisional certification lasts for 1 year, after which it must be renewed by completion of a new questionnaire. Most teleports then choose to advance to full certification based on a site inspection by a WTA auditor. In addition to a certification of one of our 4 quality tiers, teleport operators receive a detailed report on results and recommendations for improvement, and full certification remains in force for 3 years, after which it has to be renewed through a new site audit. Today, we're going to focus on the procedures and processes that deliver quality, the human factors, which quite frankly, are so much harder to get right, I think, than facilities or technology. And WTA rates the quality of those procedures in 6 areas. We look at management of satellite and terrestrial capacity, including how often the capacity plan is updated, the lag time between decisions and actual implementation of those decisions, and the use of service performance metrics. We look at management of service continuity, which includes the adoption of international standards and how often plans for continuity are reviewed and tested. We examine information and physical security, including procedures for contractor accreditation to enter your facility or access its technology, facility access, information security, and planning and management, which of course is a very, very large topic. Change management, including the people and the processes involved in implementing a request for change, the documentation of those changes, trouble ticketing, review and update of all procedures. Configuration management, from having a centralized system for recording service configurations to how cabling racks and systems are marked and managed. And finally, service availability and performance processes, including how key performance indicators are measured, how they're analyzed and updated, and how events and incidents are managed both during and after they are over. So more information on certification and a current list of certified teleports is available on our website, and you can go there, go direct to the certification section by going to www.worldteleport.org/certification. It is now time to hear from people who truly understand what it takes to manage quality in teleport operations. And it's my pleasure first to introduce Keith Frost, who is Media and Data Networks Director at Arqiva Satellite and Media. Arqiva has received full certification at Tier 4, our highest quality tier, for its Chalfont Grove teleport. And I'm going to proceed to bring Mr. Frost into this conversation. As soon as I unmute him, he'll be able to join us. So, Keith, are you there?
I am, yes. Hi.
Well, welcome aboard. Could you just finish my introduction, if you will, by telling us a bit more about yourself and your responsibilities at Arqiva?
Yes, so I work within our satellite and media division within Arqiva. Just to give a bit of a background, first of all, though, on Arqiva as a whole, we're mainly a UK-based assets company. We own the terrestrial TV network sites across the UK and are a major shareholder in the Freeview platform for terrestrial TV broadcasting. We also are very active in the telecoms space, owning a lot of small cell infrastructure, as well as about 40% of the mobile phone masts that are covering the UK. And then within my division, we have 5 teleports within the UK, with our Chalfont facility being at Tier 4 level accreditation. And we move media and data comms traffic across the globe using a fiber network that spans from the west coast of the US all the way across to Australia. In terms of my specific role, I'm responsible for all the movement of the traffic, so all that infrastructure, the people and processes that enable seamless service for our customers.
Well, thank you very much for that. Also joining us, oops, if I hit the right button, also joining us is Sheng, who is Director of Satellite Operations at Singapore Telecom. Singtel has received provisional certification of its Bukit Timah and Seletar teleports. Sheng, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, yes. Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your responsibilities at Singtel?
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Sheng. I'm a Director of Satellite Operations, Singtel Satellite. Yes, I have been working in the satellite station for 20 years since my graduation. I'm passionate in satellite and also in satellite communication. So during my career in Singtel, I have an opportunity to participate in the ST1 as well as the ongoing full cycle design and implementation of the ST2 satellite. So besides satellite operations at the Singtel Earth stations, we have broadcasting maritime services and as well as fixed services. The Earth stations that we operate are interlinked, and we are able to, the facilities are able to back up each other in case if any of the services fails. So I'm humbled to be part of this forum. I will definitely give my best to share my views on the quality management.
Well, thank you very much. And of course, Singapore Telecom is hardly needs an introduction. It's one of certainly the major hubs of teleport operations in the Asia Pacific, as well as, of course, being a major carrier in its own right. So let's get on to our discussion, because it's really the heart of, I think, why people are interested in this topic. Keith, and let's start with you. Now, I happen to know, because I worked on the certification standards, that Arqiva's engineers made really important contributions to the development of those standards, and especially in the area of procedures. Now, it all comes down to details, of course, as I sort of had hinted in my introduction. But looking at the whole issue, What would you say are the key differences between a company that is managing its procedures well and one where things fall through the cracks?
Hi, yeah. So it's a. I think I'd like to just reiterate that it's really, really important that you do need the right infrastructure in order to provide solid and robust services. But in terms of the processes, the processes and procedures need to be wrapped around that infrastructure and the standards of the facilities you have. Because if they're not, then your facilities are unable to support or unable to effectively be maintained well, and people won't necessarily know what to do when there's an issue. So the two are interlinked, is my point. You need the staff to have the operational staff to have the right knowledge of that infrastructure and the facilities that are in place, and you definitely need the right operational procedures. Otherwise, you stand no chance of being able to sort of reduce your mean time between failures, to increase your mean time between failures to as long as possible, and also your mean time to restore service as low as possible. So the kind of things that distinguish a company that is managing its procedures well and one that falls through the cracks, I think, is really around governance and control. You've got to ensure that the processes are well documented, that people are trained in those procedures and have the knowledge to follow them, and that they're regularly assessed and updated. And you need to be reporting really around how good the procedures are operating. So you've not just got your availability statistics around your service performance, and obviously the KPI service availability metrics are a key part of your processes. But you really need to be looking wider at some of the key performance indicators of the data itself within those processes, to ensure that you understand what's working well and what's not working so well. So it is very much the attention to detail, in my view.
That's interesting, and I'm glad you said what you said about the infrastructure, because of course, without that, you can have all the willing and well-trained people in the world and not accomplish your goal. I think I said it because I think that it's fairly easy to measure and understand facilities, what's required for a facility, but I think that the human factor often gets not as much attention as it should.
Yeah.
Sheng, would you agree with what Keith had to say? And are there other factors that, in your experience, ensure that a company like yours does a good job of managing the people and the processes that deliver high quality?
Yes, I think definitely we agree. The Singtel believes in engaging our people and our people engaging in the process. I think people play an important role to ensure that the process in place are followed and adhered to. And we have also set up several frameworks for quality management to ensure that the right process and policy is in place. And I think also agree that importantly, the people we develop has to have the right skill set, and beside the satellite knowledge in various platforms, and we do encourage our staff to go online to sign up for courses, and especially for soft skills and IP skill set related courses. And for the quality management framework, Singtel has embarked on ISO 9000 Quality Management System, QMS, to ensure that the processes for controlling, monitoring, and maintaining inspection of the equipment are followed. So if there's a need for corrective action, we will raise a corrective action request, and it will be initiated to prevent future recurrences.
Right. No, exactly. And in the use of quality, we mentioned, I think earlier, that the use of international quality standards is just of such importance. I'm sorry, did you have something else to add?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's about. I think it's it's about it's about the leadership. No, that once we it's important that once we set the objective, that the objective set should be compatible with the strategic direction of the organization. And I think as a leader, I think we should make the resources available and encourage our team for continuous improvement. Yeah, and I think with a dedicated team and a working committee who are committed to ensure the process are followed and also to achieve the intended outcome. I think that is what we that's how we actually manage to deliver the quality service. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. Leadership, motivation, knowledge, access to information. Just to put this in context for our listeners, and without, of course, naming any customer names, could you give us an example of how the right approach to quality control procedures, in particular, avoided a major incident for your customer or made it possible to recover faster and better than perhaps you might have expected? Well, Sheng, does something come to mind for you?
Okay, we do have weekly interlock with our engineering team to review the tickets and to identify issues so that we will avoid repeated problems. So some of the solutions that we identified, especially for the support-related issues, usually take about 2 to 3 days to resolve. And with that approach, we have managed to resolve the problem within hours. So I think that's how we make use of these processes to actually to improve our services.
Sure. So, well, it's quite a reduction from days to hours. Keith, how did Arqiva? I always love these hero stories saving the day sometimes without the customer even knowing it.
Yeah. So let me give you a reactive example that was quite recently that I was able to reflect on. Obviously, we want to avoid any kind of major incident in the first place, but of course we're running technical operations, and sometimes equipment fails and doesn't operate how you expect it to operate. So we had Arqiva experienced one of our third-party network locations. So one of our telco providers' facilities where we colo and suffered a power issue. And it was a weekend, and clearly many staff weren't around to be able to provide the immediate support. But this is a reflection of why I feel that having the right processes and procedures mean that that kind of incident is managed well. So you do need a procedure that ensures that people know what's an event and what's the management of an event, and what is something that clearly is developing into more of a major incident that needs more support and wraparound. So we have a lot of resilience in our infrastructure. So again, it goes back to our processes and our infrastructure and facilities working hand in hand. So at this stage, we, for most of our customers, this would have been a loss of redundancy situation. However, due to some accepted known errors, and this is where knowledge management is really important, due to some known errors in designs that were accepted by the relevant customers, that information was clear in our config databases, and it was important that the people who are managing the incident in the operations room were aware, could see that information and be aware that, okay, for most of it, it's loss of redundancy. For these couple of customers, it would be a loss of service due to the known errors that we had in the network. So having the tools to be able to quickly diagnose that is really important. And our engineers in the operational centers have a suite of tools that help them understand the impact. And in particular, the config management system enables them to be able to call the provider of that facility, that data center facility, to understand what's going on and what the time was to fix. Due to the nature of this being a core site, a significant and the significance, it hit a certain threshold. So we're quite clear around what the thresholds are for a major incident, and therefore the team that are in out of hours know to start the escalation process and what level of escalation to go to. From that, we've got on-call rosters available, which means to say certain operational staff have phones available to dial in and join a major incident. And we've got a very well documented major incident procedure, which identifies a number of key roles that people need to be fulfilled, and everybody fulfills that role, and that ensures that we cover off all the bases, assign actions, and can develop plans to ensure that we protect those services that are lost to redundancy, and we're trying to restore the services that have gone down as quickly as possible. We've also got a communication system, because it's really, really important that our customers understand what's going on. So they get then the regular updates from the initial incident through to the current plans and actions that we're managing to deal with it, hopefully getting to a successful conclusion as quickly as possible. And in this case, power was restored, and therefore we restored redundancy in the network, which was the right outcome. But having the right people empowered on the phones enables us to think about further mitigations and make sure that we're in a good position could we end up with further faults across the networks that we had.
Sure, that's exactly. The SWAT team leaped into action and moved forward with it. Yeah, it's very. I'm always impressed by the degree of planning that yields a good result in these kind of things. I mean, it's all an emergency, but one engineer I talked to said, "Yeah, it's another emergency." Okay.
But it's having the framework. The key thing is to have the framework with which to manage that emergency. So it's not crisis management; it's detailed planned around a framework.
Exactly. Now, this human side of quality assurance is, I'm not an engineer, so I put things into big broad brushes, but it seems to me that it falls into three key areas. One is one you just, I think, told us a good story about, making sure that human beings running the operation have access to the latest, most up-to-date information. Managing the constant changes in the services and the configurations that take place in a transmission services business, and also managing all the time, and this is something you referred to, Sheng, managing all the time against key performance indicators in a way that produces just continuous improvement year after year. Sheng, in the teleport operations there, what are some of the things that Singtel does to make sure that your NOC operators, your engineers, your field technicians can access that right information when they need to solve a customer problem?
Yes, we have the standard operating procedure that the staff are able to access, and SOP allows staff to systematically identify the problems and eliminate the steps that are not required. Updated documentation and information are centrally stored in the network access storage, and the information is available to the resolver when needed, and staff will use this information to help them to perform the troubleshooting. And I think besides the centrally accessed network access storage, Singtel built on the fault ticketing on the fault reporting system using the ServiceNow, we call it SMOD, and this system enables us to create tickets and at the same time look at historical information, and this can be retrieved in case there are repeated faults, and staff can identify them as early before we start our troubleshooting.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes. How do we ensure the continuous improvement? We have set up a performance dashboard, and we have a mechanism in place to ensure that there are always a continuous improvement to what we what we have done on a daily basis. There's a daily dashboard to keep track of outstanding tickets, and there are weekly interlocks with the business teams and to address to the customer issues and to address to the problems. And we also have a service quality committee to look at the service availability and the KPI commitment. So yeah, some of these KPI those are time to respond, time to resolution, and also we keep track closely on the service system availability and ensure that there's measurements of uptime of the services.
Thank you. I just recently had new carpet put down in my office, and as a result had to move all my desk and so forth. And I discovered, of course, that not surprisingly, there were 2 or 3 stranded cables down there that used to be plug things together, but no longer did. So, and of course, nothing was labeled or otherwise marked, but I was able to figure it out and put things back together again. So that was a very minor example of change management. Keith, how does Arqiva organize this process of change management in a business that constantly is changing its infrastructure and constantly adding and removing services? What are the essentials of getting it right, more right than I was able to do under my desk?
Yeah, well, I think probably the first thing is to ensure that people are engaged in why change management and following a defined process for change management is important, and what the goals are that you're trying to achieve. And then the next thing is making sure everybody's competent enough to, you know, the people who are undertaking the task in question are competent enough to undertake it, to know all the elements that need to be considered. And I guess we learn by our previous examples, you know, our previous mishaps. So therefore, it's ensuring that those lessons are definitely learned. In terms of how we approach change management within Arqiva, so we've got a written procedure. The procedure is quite clear, and believe me, we continually review and update it. And communicate those changes and continually sort of train colleagues up on it to try and look to improve things, because of, you know, during any kind of change, sometimes things don't go as you originally planned them, and it's so important to take those lessons back into the learning at the front end to ensure that the person understanding the person undertaking the task, the engineer who's doing it, has all the knowledge and experience of others to some extent as well, tied into what they're doing. We have a fairly, you know, in terms of having engaged people, we're quite clear. We've got quite a clear principle that no one can work in an operational area or on a live system without following the change process. And we do use our discipline, our HR discipline procedures to make sure this is robustly enforced. And that's not just about, you know, the physical going in to do something. It's also around people, you know, more commonly now, people remoting into platforms to make configuration changes and update things in order to support the services that we provide. So we do look at each change. So we've got a system, and all changes are put into that system, so it has a unique identifier. And we look at each change on the basis of risk and apply a level of scrutiny through a relevant review of the task that is dependent on the sort of risk score for the task itself. So a low risk item with a standard method statement will not necessarily get the same amount of rigor as a more complex change that needs much more control and investigation. And we have some fairly strict timelines as well, and notice periods. And the reason we have that is to make sure that people have got time to review the changes that are being put forward, but also to make sure that we notify third parties of the changes that we're making if they're stakeholders in it or it will affect them. So we get their approval, and by third parties, it could be our suppliers who provide services to it, but it also could be our customers, so that they know something's gonna happen. As part of that submission of the change, a method statement is always produced, and that method statement will break down the work into clear steps, and also ask for verification or a test to be undertaken to ensure that each step has landed successfully. so that if it hasn't, we can then within the method statement follow the clear rollback plan, yeah, to ensure that the change is stopped and reversed if it's likely that that it's not going to be successful. Better to do that than pursue the change needlessly, causing further issues. We certainly, communications is really important, especially around prior to work and after the work's completed between the network operations centres and the engineers undertaking the work, so that you know the window started and you know it's been completed. But if it's high risk, we also adopt open comms using talkback systems to ensure that actually every step is monitored and communicated through the workflow. And the other thing really is making sure that the works are reviewed on completion and they're formally closed out. And when I refer to formally closed out, it's not just ticking the box to say it was a success. It's also updating drawings and config databases so that everything's up to date, and identifying any follow-up work that's required. For example, going back to your suggestion, Robert, removing any cables that are no longer required, so you're cleaning up your infrastructure. A complex process, you see. It's not straightforward, and we do have a system in place to make sure that all these steps are tracked and logged so that that we don't miss anything.
Yeah, it is incredibly complex process. Now, I think earlier someone referred, I think it was you, Sheng, referred to these, these key performance indicators, the KPIs that we use fundamentally to manage it. Keith, could you just reflect now on how, we've talked about how you manage change. How do you then use, or what are the key performance indicators? How do you manage them to make sure that when a problem arises or a change takes place, you do learn from either mistakes or near mistakes, or just experience with a service that you would not otherwise have had?
Yeah, so Robert, the key ones that we first of all is we do measure our overall availability across each of our services for our customers, and we actually set thresholds above our customer SLAs. We do that to try and ensure that service excellence is at the forefront of what we do, yeah, and is in our mindset to deliver. So the aim is internally to always overperform rather than perform just to the contract. So you need to have the right people with the right mindset, and everybody understanding the metrics you're using and the thresholds in terms of expectations. So the key metrics that we use is availability. So what was the percentage of time that the service was available in the month? And we look to try and improve that year on year, and we incentivize teams to do that. Another key metric I mentioned earlier is around the mean time between failures, that we try and again improved across the teams over the course of a year, and the mean time to restore service. So actually, when things do happen, how quickly do we put it right, and what systems, tools, and do we have at our disposal to try and reduce that? We count the number of incidents that we've had, and also the impact in terms of the number of service hits that a particular incident or event may have, to look to try and minimize these. And finally, one that you probably won't find in the traditional ITIL handbook, but as part of our problem management, we also look at what we call avoidable outages. So these are outages that occurred that we think we could have avoided. And our robust sort of problem management process gets us into really understanding the root cause, and we ask use an approach called the 5 whys. So we believe if we ask why often enough, we will get to the bottom of what the true root cause is, so that we can fix that. And we objectivize the teams to try and reduce the number of avoidable outages. So we set targets on teams to try and go for sustained periods of time without any kind of avoidable outage. And it's really important, really, around you share the problems, you share the lessons learned from them, and we definitely do that through newsletters, engineering notices, and also team briefings.
Wow. Sheng, I'm sure that you have many of the similar things in place, but in terms of your key performance indicators, what are the important things that you track, and then how do you ensure this learning takes place within the organization?
Okay, I think just to add on to the change management process, Singtel take a serious view on how we manage the change management as well, and we put the emphasis on the method of procedure and how these changes are executed, and especially when this change over um, uh, year end or holiday period, there is a specific embargo that we are not allowed to execute the change during this critical period. So I think regarding the performance indicator, I think we have in general, I think for BAU tickets that we have, time to respond, time to resolution, time to response within 30 minutes, no? And time to resolution within 1 day or 1.5 days. And also we look at the system availability uptime, ensure that when we do our change management, we ensure that that there are proper procedure, and if it is a 1+1 system and there is a redundancy available, we will do one change at a time to ensure that the system, at least at one point of time, there is one available system, and we will need to plan and schedule for a change for the other system to be a part, to do some to perform the changes to the system. Yeah.
Thank you both. I wanted to ask a question that has been on my mind, and actually was suggested by one of our listeners. These are both very detailed, time-consuming processes to ensure excellence. And of course, in the real world and business, we're constantly trying to do as much as we can with as little resource. We're constantly under deadline pressure. So speaking of the issue of leadership that Sheng opened up with about 20 minutes ago, how do you, and I'll ask you first, Sheng, how do you manage that deadline pressure, which is always trying to take away from the time that you have to ensure quality, yet somehow you have to make sure that you're doing the steps that are necessary while still keeping on schedule and meeting the business's demands? Sheng,
Yes. Yes. You are referring to the information security, or you are?
No. I'm throwing a question at you, which is simply that the processes that you gentlemen have both described are both very require a tremendous amount of resource, both human resource and the technical resources of the company, and they're fabulous. There is always pressure in the business to move on, to get the next thing done. And so I'm always impressed when I hear from companies like yours about the fact that you spend this time learning, managing your KPIs, learning from them, and adapting your procedures. How do you face that struggle when the company comes to you and says we have to do it faster and cheaper and better, and yet your job is to make sure that the company does it right? As a leader, I'm curious.
Yes. I think it takes everyone from the top management to down to every individual to be aligned, to aware that that uptime is the utmost important. I think we shall not cut corners. We shall not take shortcuts. No, because of pressing needs to get the to perform the change management, I think we should not. We should actually ensure that there are the right procedures in place and is tested and is verified by the subject matter experts before we proceed to any of these changes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you, Keith. How about you? I'm sure this is a problem you have to face every week.
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing is that the leadership needs to ensure there's a common goal, and I think what we do, everything's got to be. Business is about risk, so everything has to be, has to be appropriate. All the activities procedures you have to be risk based. Otherwise, you do become bureaucratic, and things can take too long. But I would challenge out there and say, look, yes, it takes time at the front end, but if it's successful and the change is implemented well, then it's really, really efficient, because we've seen where change or where documentation is incorrect, it costs a lot more to the organization in follow-ups, reports to customers, discussing why things didn't occur how they were expected to occur, what went wrong. And it costs you a lot more, therefore it's much more inefficient to be doing all of that effort at the back end rather than focusing your people on the front end to avoid having those inefficient activities completed later on. So that's one of the key messagings that we drive. And of course, in a challenging world, if you don't provide great service, then your customers always has the choice of going elsewhere in a very competitive market. So therefore, it's quite short-sighted to think that you can get away with providing poor customer service and expect the customer not and still expect the customer to renew. So I think it's really, really important that you measure it in those terms rather than the specifics of the potential extra effort that's required to get it right first time.
Yeah, thank you. Now, it wasn't very long ago that information security, which Sheng mentioned just a second ago, was something that quite frankly, teleport and satellite operators prefer to leave to their customers. But it is now, and I know this because I have a bunch of interviewing I did a couple of years ago, it is now obviously a high-level concern for them. And it's well established that the single biggest threat to cybersecurity is us, the three of us and everybody on the phone, the people who work in the company. So what are some of the steps that your companies take to improve the security environment?
So I think probably it's that whole leadership piece again. So, having a chief technology, a CISO, chief information security officer is key, and making sure that they're empowered really to drive the agenda. And then I'd reinforce it's education. It's about people understanding their password management. It's about people having clear desk policy within the organization, so information's not left lying around. And it's as part of that education, it's all about awareness of the types of attacks that are out there to try and catch an individual or an organization out, like phishing emails, ransomware, spamming, spoofing. It really comes down to making people aware. And then it's also those people who are in design roles, it's making sure that actually in their role they are thinking about security and they're doing an appropriate security assessment around all the infrastructure or the changes that they could be making. And it's around that movement and handling. So we talked about clear desk policy in terms of not leaving confidential information that could be utilized lying around. It's also these days very much on the old USB and on your laptop. So it's making sure that people understand, use encrypted devices and understand the importance of following those procedures. And finally, it's not just around the organization either. It's about, it's a challenge for the industry, just like I guess health and safety was years and years ago. So it is working with your suppliers and your customers to try and ensure that you're providing a united front and you've got solutions that work collectively and are harmonized together. And I would encourage organizations to work with governments as well where appropriate, to ensure that they're getting all the support and awareness of what's going on to try and help them manage the situation. It's a challenge for all of us.
Interesting. When you say working with governments, you're talking about going to the national government level, or?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Arqiva in the UK works very closely, as a critical national infrastructure provider, works closely with the relevantly empowered governmental agencies. There's a wealth of information out there and support, and I would just encourage people to tap into it if they've got concerns.
Absolutely. Well, coincidentally, in September of last year, we interviewed your Chief Information Security Officer, Dennis Onu, oh, I always have such trouble with his name. It's a great name, Onuoha. And he's very well spoken and outspoken about what it really takes to get cybersecurity right. So excerpts from this video interview actually are available on our site under programs and awards, executive dialogues. And so they're very much worth listening to for anybody who wants to dive into that topic more. That is actually what we have time for today, and I really appreciate the time that you gentlemen have spent with me. Tomorrow, WTA will publish a new research report on sizing the teleport market, which provides global and regional facility counts, estimates of market size by revenues, capacity, usage, and spending, as well as CapEx, and on a global basis, head count. This is research we last did in 2010, so this is a major update. We engaged an excellent firm, FutureSource, to do the work for us. So we think it's very strong information that will be useful to anybody's business plan in our industry. It's available free to personnel of WTA member companies, and it is also available for sale to non-members. Quite frankly, you won't want to miss it. So my thanks, my very sincere thanks to Keith and Sheng for sharing their knowledge and experience with us today, gentlemen. It's been really, really helpful to our listeners, and it's been, as always, educational for me. So thank you both.